Hello and welcome back to the world of the spirit consciousness. We are in the middle of a book study session, The Astral Body and Other Astral Phenomena by A.E. Powell. We are now in the middle of the 13th module discussing astral entities. In this particular session, we shall discuss the those astral entities which have a human origin and are dead in the physical plane. So in this particular subsection, we shall be discussing the vampire and the werewolf, the black magician and his pupil awaiting reincarnation, and the Nirman Kanaya. We'll start with the discussion on the vampires and the werewolf. So here we have two types, the vampire and the werewolf. Let's look at the vampire. So it's an extremely rare class, although at times they are found mainly in countries like Russia and Hungary, where the fourth race blood types are present to a great extent. An individual can live a life so tremendously low, cruel, and selfish that the entire lower mind is enmeshed by the desires, eventually separating from the higher ego. Quite possibly, every bit of spirituality and selflessness gets smothered and there is no redeeming quality left. Very shortly after death, this entity is not able to stay in the astral plane and in full consciousness is uncontrollably attracted to its own place. So this place is an obscure eighth sphere where the entity perishes after experiences best not described. However, if it dies by suicide or accident, it can prevent itself from such a fate under some situations, and this is especially true if it has some knowledge of black magic. Now, the eighth sphere cannot take charge of the individual until the body dies. Hence, she or he, this the vampire, keeps the body preserved in a sort of cataleptic trance by sucking on other people's blood via its semi materialized astral body. Thereby, by committing mass murders, such an individual postpones the fate that awaits him. Upon opening the grave, it is found that the body is fresh and healthy, and it is not unusual to find the coffin filled with blood. The best way to prevent such an occurrence is the cremation of the body. This has rightly been suggested by the well known superstition. Cremation destroys any such support to an entity that we spoke about. Hence, cremation destroys any possibility of vampirism. Coming to the werewolf, a werewolf can manifest itself only in the individual's physical lifetime. It usually suggests some knowledge of magical arts which is enough to make the individual capable of projecting the astral body. When this is done by a totally wicked and cruel person, under some situations the astral body can be overpowered by other astral beings. They materialize into a wild animal's form, often a wolf, instead of a human form. In this condition, it will roam nearby territories and kill animals as well as humans, hence satisfying the craving for blood, its own as well as those of the demons who encourage it. In such occurrences, which is frequent in normal materializations, a wound on the astral body reflects on the physical body by the fascinating phenomena of repercussion. So, after the physical body's death, the astral body will continue to exist in the same form and will then be less vulnerable. It will also be less threatening because until it finds a proper medium, it cannot completely materialize. Both these manifestations contain large amounts of etheric matter, contain some liquid and gaseous components of the physical body, and have a fluidic body which appears to travel large distances from the physical body than normally possible based on what is known of a body containing etheric matter, and they are generally limited to the nearest vicinity of their physical bodies. So there is a slight disconnect in these two sentences over here. They're contrasting, but that's how it's in the book. Coming to the black magician and his pupil, so this class conversely corresponds to the students who is awaiting for rebirth. But in this class, the person violates the natural evolution process by staying in the astral world with the help of some extremely gruesome magical arts. An occult student would want to avoid enlisting or describing the several subdivisions of this class. The beings who extend their presence and existence on the astral plane in this way, by extending the limit, do so at the cost of others and by absorbing their life in one way or the other. So the pupil awaiting reincarnation. So this is also a very rare class, a student who has taken the decision of not passing from the heaven world or taking the Devachan and continuing work in the physical world is at times allowed to do so only by permission of a very high authority. This too, after an appropriate lifetime is arranged for by the student by his or her master. After the consent is given, the student must strictly remain within the confines of the astral plane. This is because if she or he touches the mental plane even for a moment, they'd be quickly drawn into the heaven world by an overwhelming force as per the normal course of evolution. At times, although rarely, the student is directly transferred to the adult body of someone who doesn't need it anymore. But hardly an appropriate body is available for such purposes. Simultaneously, the student is fully conscious on the astral plane. So she or he continues more efficiently with the work allotted to him or her by his or her master as compared to with the hindrance of a physical body. Finally, coming to the Nirmanakaya, so it is not often that a being as highly evolved as a Nirmanakaya himself or herself manifests on the physical, on the astral plane. So a Nirmanakaya is a being who has achieved the right to indescribable bliss for countless ages and still chooses to stay connected to earth. The Nirmanakanaya chooses to do this by existing between the world and the nirvana so that he can emit streams of spiritual force which can be utilized to help in evolution. In order to appear on the astral plane, the Nirmanakanaya can construct a temporary astral body made out of the atomic matter of the plane. This is possible because the Nirmanakanaya maintains his causal body and the permanent atoms carried throughout his evolution. Hence, at any point of time, he can manifest mental, astral, or physical vehicles around them if he wishes to do so. So, this brings us to the end of the discussion on astral entities which are physically dead, and therefore that closes our discussion on astral entities human. Stay tuned for a discussion on non human astral entities.